So on February 2nd, 1922, Taylor's houseman arrived at his bungalow and he found 49-year-old Taylor dead in his living room, and he just screamed and ran out. But when the police arrived and they turned him over, they found him lying in a pool of his own blood, and he was shot one single time in the back. Now, till today, this case remains again unsolved. Hello everyone, I hope you are doing marvelous and wonderful and amazing. I just want to get the elephant out of the room. The elephant, not my nose. I know I have a big nose, but that's not the elephant I'm referring to. I am referring to the fact that I am sick. I am getting a cold and I sound like shit. I'm probably going to be sniffing a lot, but I do not want to skip the week, and I do want to tell you guys a crime story for this week. First of all, I just want to start off by saying thank you to those of you who do watch. It means a lot to me. Every single person that watches it means a lot to me. As I mentioned before, I love talking about true crime, so the fact that we can talk about things together makes me happy. Anyway, we are going to be talking about a case that happened on February 1st. Happy February, everybody. This will probably come out in February, if not the day before. But we are talking about a case that happened February 1st, 1922 in sunny Los Angeles. Yet again, we are going to be talking about a Hollywood director today, an unsolved murder of director William Desmond Taylor. He died on February 1st, many years ago. So the same time period, but just a lot of years ago. So on February 2nd, 1922, Taylor's houseman, yes, he had a houseman, so he was fancy. Henry Perry, PV, I can't read my handwriting, arrived at his bungalow. Not sure what a bungalow is. I don't know why they always refer to a bungalow. I have seen it referred to as an apartment as well, so bungalow/apartment. And he found 49-year-old Taylor dead in his living room, and he just screamed and ran out. Police were called. Neighbors might have called because of the scream. But there were lots of 911 calls that came in, and police were called to investigate a death that seemed to be of natural causes because, like I mentioned, he just screamed and ran away. But when the police arrived and they turned him over, they found him lying in a pool of his own blood, and he was shot one single time in the back. Now, till today, this case remains again unsolved. I don't know if there's just a shit ton of murders in LA or just LAPD is just, I don't know, but a lot of these unsolved cases happen in LA. Just a little tidbit. If you don't know, I'm referring to one of the last cases we did on Elizabeth Short, also unsolved, also in LA. If you want to check that out, I would recommend checking that out. That is a terrible, gruesome, unsolved murder that took place in LA as well. So who was Desmond Taylor? I never heard of him, but probably because I was born in 2002 and this guy was living his life in the very early 1900s. He was born April 26th, 1872 in Carlow, Ireland. So he was a tourist just like me, and he was born under the name William Cunningham Dean Tanner. If I look like Rudolph again, I'm sorry. Just bear with me. I am not feeling well today. Anyway, he was the child of a British Army Major, Dean Tanner, and his mother was Jane Dean Tanner. His siblings were Oswald, Dennis, Daisy, and Nell. Cute name. Love the name Daisy. The family moved to Dublin, and in his teens, William tried to go into the military. I'm assuming his father wanted him to do that, and he failed all of his tests and he could not get into the military. So his father was pissed and shipped him off to America. I'm not sure why America. Was that like supposed to be a punishment to him? That's kind of offensive if it was. But he shipped him to America. Why did I just say America like that? At a reform school, and he was only 18 at the time. He went to New York to pursue acting, and he also worked as an engineer, antique dealer, and gold miner. He was not dealing drugs, he was dealing antiques. And by 1901, he was 29 years old, and he married his wife, Ethel May Harrison, the daughter of a famous New York stockbroker. And then he also had a daughter with her, also named Ethel. A lot of Ethels in this story. Born 2 years later. Anyway, at the time, William was doing well. He was living in an upscale New York City neighborhood, and he was being vice president in an English antique shop. And in 1908, for no apparent reason, he ran away. He told his wife he was going to buy milk, and he never came back. No, he didn't say he was going to buy milk. But he ran away and said he was going out to lunch, and he just never came back. So he abandoned both of the Ethels and his whole family. He just abandoned and ran away to California. Again, if you watched my video on Elizabeth Short, moving to California doesn't always seem to end well. That's what they both did. Here we are now. I'm just kidding. I'm sure California's great, but it doesn't work out for everyone. Only 7 years into his marriage and 5 years into his daughter's life, he fled and abandoned his family. He fled from his family to pursue these dreams, I guess, but kind of not great. Character development wise, that's not very nice to do that to your family. He left behind his wife and his daughter to just fend for themselves. I don't want to speak ill of the dead, but that was not very nice. At this point, he changed his name to William Desmond Taylor at 36-year-old. So as I mentioned, he was born under a different name. He fled to California, changed his name, his identity, left his family behind, and started a new life. In December 1912, he showed up in Santa Monica, California as an actor in a movie Counterfeiters in 1919. Another famous movie he acted in was Tale of Two Cities, and he filmed several other movies. They're mostly silent films. He was a silent film actor. And then in 1917, he got offered the chance to direct. His first big directing job was a famous Players Lasky. I think that was the company of directors. And he directed Tom Sawyer in 1917 and Huckleberry Finn in 1920. In July 1918, William enlisted in the Canadian Army, and he served until 1919. Anyway, he was in the Canadian Army for a year. Here's a picture of him in the Army, and he came out of the Army. I'm not sure why. He just popped in the Army, popped back out, and then he kept directing. By this point, he is a very successful director in Hollywood, and he also became infamous in one of Hollywood's first major unsolved murders in 1922. So this was 20 years prior to Elizabeth Short's murder. Far less brutal, but still a mystery, still unsolved. According to the police, what happened that night was it was an unusually cold night in Los Angeles. Even though it was Prohibition, William and actress and comedian Mabel Normand, they shared orange blossom gin cocktails, which sound amazing, by the way. But that's what they were doing that night. Mabel played piano until like 7:45 p.m. He walked her to her car. Now, this is pretty early night. So the night ended at 7:45. She left. Her driver drove her off. They blew kisses at each other, and he walked back inside. And Mabel was the last person to see him alive. Taylor went back into his apartment at 8 p.m. The neighbors heard a lot of car backfire, and then they saw a man with a long coat and a plaid cap over his face. And like, that man looked back at one of them and then just like calmly looked away and then drove off. And then that was all they heard that night. From that point until the scream the next morning of his maid or whatever finding his body, that was the only sounds that they heard. So it wasn't like a fight erupted. There was no screaming, yelling, arguing. It was, they heard what they thought was car backfire, like, engine sputtering, or, cars are loud. And then they saw that man, and then that was it. That was all. No one said they heard gunshots, no screaming, nothing, just that. And the neighbors described this person as funny looking. Not really sure what that meant. And also effeminate walk. Effeminate. That means feminine. I looked it up. But they were unable to say for sure if it was a man or a woman, but they're pretty sure it was just a feminine man. Just like in my last video we did, the neighbors also couldn't tell if it was a man or woman in the security video about the Texas woman that was shot in her driveway. Same thing, people just aren't really sure, because from a distance and stuff, it's hard to tell. You should check that video out as well. That was pretty crazy. Another unsolved. I've been doing a lot of unsolved cases lately. The car backfire. Like I mentioned, cars are loud. That could have been a loud popping sound. Could that been a mistaken with a gunshot, maybe? Maybe, possibly. I mean, probably, since he did get shot. Anyway, so the scene, he worked for Paramount Studios at the time, and I guess when they heard about the murder, they went and seized a bunch of letters from his apartment and the bootleg liquor they took, and they even cleaned up the blood in the apartment. I don't know how that's not illegal. I don't know if they didn't get arrested for that or what, but it just kind of like briefly mentioned that his employer just kind of cleaned up the crime scene a little bit because they didn't want like bad press, because like they're actors and directors or something, they've been getting like bad press lately, so they didn't want bad press from his love letters or his alcohol during Prohibition. Who were the suspects? Obviously, Mabel was a suspect. She was the last person to see William alive, but she was never really thought of a serious suspect because they didn't really ever consider her. Like I mentioned, they thought they saw a man, and they were really good friends, and like, I think they were like dating, so she just wasn't a serious suspect. But she was very adamant she wanted to collect the letters she had written him from the apartment. There was a theory that she might not have been the one to pull the trigger, but he may have died because of him. Apparently she had a cocaine and opium addiction, and William was trying to help her. He arranged for her to stay at a rehab. I'm sorry about the slight change in lighting. My camera was dying, so I had to plug that in, and I do not have another pluggy to put the light on me. Sorry about that. Where were we? Oh my god. I'm sorry, I'm a mess today. I'm not feeling good. Anyway, so they thought that it was because William was trying to put Mabel into this rehab and help her. This may have upset the drug dealers that she was buying drugs from, because it was said that Mabel spent $2,000 a month on drugs, just her alone. So I'm sure that was a big piece of the drug dealers' profit, so that he could have pissed off the drug dealers for this movie star director trying to get her off drugs and messing with their business. So a theory was that this was a hit for them to take charge against any kind of opposition to drugs and drug dealers. So that's scary to think about. I don't like that. It's good to oppose drugs. But that theory very much makes sense to me. Other suspect is Mary Miles Minter. This one's a little bit creepy. She was only 20 years old at the time, so younger than me. And she constantly was writing letters to William, professing her love to him. As I mentioned, he was like 40 something years old at the time. So he thought, this is kind of good character in him. He thought that was a little bit weird. He's like, I am old enough to be your dad. Nothing's happening between us. Thank you. And she was constantly just throwing herself at him, even though he was constantly kind of like pushing her off, like saying she's too young. And it was borderline stalkerish, and this upset William. William was very concerned about it, about how infatuated she was with him. And it was said that she would sneak out of her house like early hours in the morning and just show up at his doorstep and just like beg him to let her stay. And William actually opened up to his friend about her, about how upsetting it was for him. After the tragedy, the friend sat down with LAPD to let them know this information about her, and how worried he was over it. And I quote, he told the friend, "There's a sweet little girl who is in love with me, but I'm old enough to be her dad." She'd show up at his apartment at 3 a.m., insisted on staying, and would say, "If you don't let me stay, I'm going to scream and cause a scene." Toxic. And then he would have to like talk her down from that and convince her to just let him drive her home, and stalk her. If you've never seen Baby Reindeer, women can be stalkers too. This is stalkerish. If you're obsessing over someone that doesn't want you, and showing up at their house, that's stalking, and that is harassment. So if she was not guilty of this man's murder, she was guilty of harassment and stalking. According to Mary, when the police reached out to Mary, she claimed she hasn't seen him in a long time. She said the last time she saw him was he was driving or something, and she waved to him, and that was it. That was the last time they saw each other. But she was lying, because there were 3 blonde hairs found on his jacket at the scene that were matching hers. So Mary, how was this a wave in the street, but your hair is on his coat? After they told her that, she changed her story. She said, "Oh, well, we also saw each other again on the street and we hugged." So there is a theory that she showed up again, pulling one of her drama queen scenes, begging for her to let her stay, and saying this time she had a gun, and saying, I'm staying, or else." And they don't think that she actually meant to shot him, though. They think that she was just freaking out, like waving the gun around, and he had to calm her down, and the gun accidentally went off. They think this because the bullet hole was not aligned from his jacket to his vest under his jacket. So the powder suggests that this was done at close range, when his left arm was raised a little bit, as if he was in an embrace hugging someone. based on the bullet, the powder, residue, like all that forensics, the person who shot him was just over 5 feet tall. So that fits most of the women suspects. There could be a man who is just over 5 feet tall as well, but it's probably one of these crazy women that I mentioned. Now you're probably thinking, well, then who was that guy in the trench coat? Maybe that guy came to cover it up after one of these crazy ladies did it, and then they told someone, and he's like, what did you do? And then he went there and, like, cleaned up the scene a little, maybe, or, like, wiped down fingerprints or something. But then why would the hair be on his jacket? Maybe they forgot about that. Or that was a lady in the trench coat. We don't know. They said they weren't sure. Could have been either or. So it could have been a man crouching as well, they thought, but unlikely. Who shoots someone crouching unless it's in a struggle? But like I said, the neighbors didn't hear anything. There's no fight, nothing like that. So it was probably a woman. Some people think it was Mary's mom. Like, maybe Mary's mom thought he was a bad influence on her, even though her daughter was the stalker, criminal, harasser. I don't know. There is a billion other suspects, but this video is long and I do not feel good, so I'm just gonna cut it off at that. What do I think? I think Mary is a good fit for this. I think she knows more than she said, because she lied. She tried to say the last time she saw him was waving from the street, but her hair was on him. So I do think she was there that night. I think that maybe she was stalking him, saw Mabel there, got pissed, and brought a gun and killed him. The guy in the trench coat, I don't know. Maybe she was wearing a trench coat to, like, stalk him. Maybe, like I said, it was her dad who came after, because she told her dad, and then he was like, what the heck? Let me go check it out. I don't know. No, I was also thinking, what if it was his wife? Because if I was Ethel, I would be pissed. You freaking left me and our baby daughter alone to go chase your dreams in Hollywood, like, just schnoozling with all these, like, actresses. Like, I would be pissed. Like, that is a murder motive if I ever heard one. But I don't know. I mean, if it was, unless he was with, what's her name, Mary, and the wife saw, and then the wife got pissed. But I don't know, because wouldn't Mary just say it was the wife? But he doesn't like her, so why would her hair be on him? I don't know. It was probably Mary. I think it's probably Mary. I think that sounds right. The whole hugging, his left arm was raised, the gunshot pattern, 5 feet tall. Mary seems like a good fit. I'm not sure about the trench coat. Could that have been Mary? Maybe. Please please let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you have any theories? Have you heard of this case before? Was there anything I missed? Probably a lot. Please let me know if you want to talk about it. I will talk to you back. Again, thank you guys for watching. If you're enjoying the content, please make sure to like and subscribe so you never miss a murder mystery case or just a true crime case that happened this week in history. I hope you guys have a great day and stay safe and healthy and happy. And I hope you have a good start to your February. It's a new month. We're in the second month of 2025 already. It's flying. Yeah, thank you for watching. Bye, guys.